a better name for a segment in the history of sports television? I'll wait. You can't. It's Tasteful News with my friend Jamie Noodles McLennan, our NHL analyst. Buddy, you've been on TSN Radio in Toronto all week talking about this thing. We'll get to Kyle Dubas in just a minute. But we got to start with Brad Treliving, introduced as the new GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and talk a lot about Austin Matthews. What level of confidence should Leaf Nation have after hearing what Treliving had to say about Matthews on Thursday, Jamie?
Well, you should be confident because Brad Treliving is a well-respected general manager. So this isn't his first, we'll call it rodeo or time around having to negotiate a big contract. That being said, too, if you take a look at Austin Matthews, what he said at the end of the season, it falls in line with wanting to get a contract extension done. And it doesn't matter who the general manager is. Yes, the term, as far as years, the money is certainly going to be something that Brad Treliving is going to have to work tirelessly to sort that out with his agent. So is it a shorter term deal? Is it less money? Is it more money? That's the stuff and the multi-million-dollar question that we are waiting for answers. But I think the level of confidence should be high because it's more about the big picture and Austin Matthews wanting to, we'll call it, finish what he started here in Toronto. He wants the end game. He wants to deliver the big prize to the city of Toronto. So I'm pretty confident that he will get an extension done. It's just a matter of obviously when and how much.
Jamie, we know when a new GM comes to a team, usually he wants to hire his own head coach. But I thought it was interesting what Treliving said on Thursday about the fact that when he took over in Calgary, he actually kept Bob Hartley around initially, which people weren't sure if he was going to do that. So it pointed to the fact that maybe he does decide to keep Sheldon Keefe around. If he does, how long does he have to make that decision whether he does keep him or not? And if he does keep him around, Jamie, I mean, he's going into the last year of his contract. Does he need a contract extension?
Well, I'll finish the first question is he's got nothing but time because as we've seen with the framework of this National Hockey League team, the Toronto Maple Leafs, they are outstanding in the regular season. And Sheldon Keefe has been a big part of that. The coaching, you had 115 points 2 years ago, 111 points this past season. So they do get it done in the regular season. It's getting over the hump in the playoffs. They've got one playoff round win now underneath their belt. But Brad Treliving has the luxury of time to get to know the coaching staff, to get to know the players as far as heading into next season. If he decides to keep Sheldon Keefe, then it's more about, okay, do you want to extend him? And if things don't go so well, or he doesn't like what he sees happening, then he doesn't extend him, and he could probably use that bullet at some point throughout the season. So Brad Treliving wants to get his feet wet, get to know everybody in the organization, including Sheldon Keefe, where, yes, he's actually inherited him. But as he said today, I believe Sheldon Keefe is a very good coach. And if he was a free agent, there would be a lot of teams that would be looking at him. So why doesn't Brad Treliving look at him while he's on the job?
I like that philosophy very much. Okay. What timing today with the Pittsburgh Penguins sending out their media release a half hour before the Leafs presser. It was hilarious to me, Jamie. Let's hear from the new president of hockey operations of the Pittsburgh Penguins, Mr. Kyle Dubas.
In your final press conference with Toronto, you expressed just how difficult of a season it was on you and your family. Why was this the opportunity?
It was, and I mean, maybe I was too honest that day with how I was feeling in that exact moment. But it's in the past. On the family side, it's all of those boxes were checked in terms of the people that I'd be working for and with. The people in the organization that I had met were incredible, and everybody in the city that we interacted with was incredible. And then once Jen and Jason were great with showing us around, we all became very comfortable with the idea. So it wasn't the intention going in, but seeing that we were going to have to move anyway, you never know that if you pass on this, is an opportunity to work with these people and for a city like this and a group like this going to be available. And so we jumped in today with both feet. Having time with Sully and Sid to see what kind of people they were, because I mean I can look from afar and think I know them, but getting to know them was important to me. If people want to bet against Mike Sullivan, Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang, and others, they can go ahead and do so, but I'm going to bet on them and go with them here. So I do think that it's a group capable of contending to win a championship.
And the Pens, as I mentioned, announced the Dubas hiring half an hour before the Brad Treliving Leafs media conference, giving media in Toronto to ask Shanahan about Dubas.
I've been in contact with the CEO of Fenway, Sam Kennedy. He and I are very close. We've talked over the last week several times about Kyle. So I think they need to get to work as well. Fully endorsed Kyle. I thought he told Sam that he would be great for their organization, and I'm very happy for him.
Okay. Well, Jamie, what do you make of the timing of the Penguins press release half hour before the Treliving press conference? Do you make anything of it?
No, I thought it was brilliant. It's a little bit of trolling, and you know that Brad Treliving is going to be brought out at 11 o'clock, and all of a sudden it's, half an hour before that, and the news breaks of Kyle Dubas. This is, gamesmanship, and I don't mind it. It's kind of like a little backhanded trolling, like, hey, I got a job here too. So I liked it. I liked Brendan Shanahan's comments. He took the high road, endorsed Kyle Dubas. They had a close friendship and a close relationship for 9 years. So ultimately, you can be happy for both parties as they move on.
There was some speculation that maybe Kyle Dubas was going to wait and see how this Ottawa Senators ownership situation played out and see if maybe there was an opportunity there. But in the end, he goes to Pittsburgh. Do you like this? Ultimately, do you like this fit for Kyle Dubas at this stage in his career, Jamie?
Well, this isn't a lateral move. He gets an opportunity to go and be the president of hockey operations for another organization. So as you heard him, they jumped in with both feet. I just kind of I chuckled a little bit because when you look at May 15th, his comments, and he said they were raw, and he was a little bit too honest. He said, well, don't expect me to pop up with a new organization next week. Well, that wasn't the case. It was actually 2 weeks later that he popped up. But it's the right situation for Kyle Dubas because he's getting an opportunity to run his own show right from top to bottom. And you heard his comments as well say, I'm going to be the interim general manager while I get my feet wet within the organization, and I will choose somebody later this summer. So his footprint, and really during free agency, his fingerprints are going to be all over the team that they build for next season. So Kyle Dubas, he's got his work cut out for him, just like Brad Treliving. But you could argue that he's going to a similar situation in Pittsburgh where you've got a core there that is under contract. You could just fast forward it that they've won before, and that core is 10 years older than the core he left behind in Toronto. So a lot of similar situations. It's just a different scenario where you're moving to Pittsburgh, and the guys that you've inherited have all won Stanley Cups, and they're trying to do it again, as opposed to in Toronto, they're trying to do it for a first time.
And I think you laid it out perfectly there, Jamie. So having laid it out there for the viewers and me and you, who has the tougher job over the next couple of weeks, Treliving or Kyle Dubas?
Well, I'm going to say Brad Treliving because Austin Matthews is looming. And like I said earlier in the conversation, I have no doubt that Austin Matthews wants to be in Toronto through his words that we've heard him talk. But getting that contract over the line, seeing where William Nylander's at, and to be honest, as far as Treliving settling into a giant market and having to hit the ground running, I'll say his job, especially in the hockey mecca, is going to be a little bit more difficult to kind of shape around that core four, we'll call it, and more that he was talking about today.
Another thing I loved about the Penguins putting out that media release just a half an hour before the Leafs won, Jamie, is the fact that because they did it with such short notice, no Toronto reporters could get down to Pittsburgh and talk to Dubas face-to-face, which I thought was hilarious. However, I know Mark Masters was very upset about it, Jamie. So later in the show, our Leaf reporter, Mark Masters, will join us with his thoughts on what transpired on Thursday. So we're looking forward to that. But, Jamie, thanks for this. Well, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon.
You too.